go ahead and draw this diagram. Okay, so hopefully that's enough time for everyone to draw this. Note that this center part is called the nucleus of the atom. These outside rings are called the orbitals. Now, the nucleus is sort of where all the mass in the atom is concentrated. So atoms are mostly empty space. Like these electrons moving around the outside, this isn't drawn to scale. There is so much space between the electrons and the nucleus that you can shoot very small particles at an atom, and for the most part, they'll go just straight through. Every once in a while, they'll hit the center of the atom and bounce back, but for the most part, they're bouncing in a different direction. On the atom here, there's three main parts to the atom: the proton, the electron, and the neutron. So first, we're going to talk about the proton. Protons are located in the nucleus here. They have a mass of 1 AMU, that stands for an atomic mass unit, and their charge is +1. So again, they're located in the nucleus. Next up is the electron. Mass is 0 AMU. Charge is -1, and it's located in the orbital. So the electrons orbit around the nucleus. They're not located in the center with the other particles. Last up, we have the neutron. Has a mass of 1 AMU, just like a proton. It has no charge, that's why we call it a neutron. It's neutral. And it's also located in the nucleus. So your atomic number, that thing on the periodic table, like carbon is number 6 and hydrogen is number 1, that's just your number of protons. Your charge is your number of protons minus your number of electrons. And your mass is your number of protons plus your number of neutrons. And then last up is the mass. The mass is the number of protons plus the number of neutrons. And so we get the charge because the protons are positive and the electrons are negative. So that's why our charge is just the number of protons minus the number of electrons. The mass, the only things with mass are the neutron and the proton. And so we get our mass from just adding those together. We call that the mass number. One thing I want to mention, the mass of the electron isn't actually 0, but it's an electron weighs 1/1000th of a proton. So it takes 1,000 electrons to equal the mass of one proton. And so for that reason, when we're calculating the mass of atoms, we just ignore the electrons for the most part. Simply because they don't have as much mass. Okay, so neutral atom is an atom with a charge of 0, has the same number of protons and electrons. So we're only going to be dealing with neutral atoms to start. Eventually here we'll talk about atoms with charges. Those are called ions. But for right now, we're only going to be dealing with neutral atoms. So atoms with the same number of protons and electrons. And then this example has a typo in there. It says fluorine has 6 protons and 6 electrons. It should be carbon. So a neutral carbon atom has 6 protons and 6 electrons. And so we're getting that protons have a positive charge, so that would be +6. Electrons have a negative charge, so that would be -6. +6 plus -6 equals 0. So not all atoms are neutral atoms, but to begin with, we will only be working with neutral atoms. So in other words, atoms that have the same number of protons and electrons. So I'm not exactly sure when we're going to be covering ions, but for right now, you can just think of all the atoms that we're working with right now have the same number of protons and electrons. Okay, so this is just a reminder how to read the periodic table. This number up top is the atomic number. This is the element symbol, this is the element name, and this is the atomic mass on the bottom here. Remember that the atomic number is just the same as the number of protons. So carbon is atomic number 6 because it has 6 protons. The atomic mass is approximately equal to the mass number, so the number of protons and neutrons. You can see like the atomic mass of carbon is a decimal, 12.01. So you can estimate that. Okay, so let's go over this first one together. So here we have oxygen. If we want to find the chemical symbol for oxygen, we just look at the periodic table. Oxygen is O, and we write that in there. I told you that it has 8 protons and 8 neutrons, so you have to tell me the number of electrons. Well, remember, we're dealing with neutral atoms, so protons and electrons will always be the same. So number of protons was 8, so number of electrons is 8. Atomic number, that's also the same thing as the number of protons. So these three, atomic number, number of electrons, and number of protons, will be the same for every single one on this table. The atomic number is 8. And then your mass number, remember that's just your number of protons and number of neutrons added together. So 8 plus 8 gets us to 16. You could also get it from looking at the atomic number, or sorry, the atomic mass on the periodic table. For oxygen, it's like 15.999, so we estimate it to be 16. Okay, silicon, that's up next. So go ahead and type in the chat, what's the chemical symbol for silicon? Yep. Sophie, you have it, but make sure when you type it, your first letter's capitalized. Yep. Good, that's good. Okay, we're all getting it. Silicon is Si, right? And we're getting that from the periodic table. So Si. Number of protons in silicon, that's 14. Number of neutrons, that's also 14. Number of electrons, that's also 14. Right, so all those were given to you. So then what's the atomic number? Well, that's just your number of protons, so that's going to be 14. And then what's the mass number for silicon? Go ahead and type it in the chat. Yep, Sophie's got it. Elijah's got it. Yep. Adam, Andrew, Evan, Ferris, Matthew. Yeah, so Ferris, is that the atomic mass? The 28.086? And so that's good that you're finding that on the periodic table. Just round that to 28, though. Just round it to the nearest integer. Okay, good. So then last up is aluminum. Aluminum. Aluminum has atomic number 13. Okay, so what's our chemical symbol for aluminum? Go ahead and type that in the chat. Good. Yep, it's Al. Yep, right there. Okay. How many protons does aluminum have? Louisa guesses 13. Myra says 13. Elijah guesses 13. Ferris says 13. Matthew 13. Yep, it's just the same as the atomic number. Right, the atomic number is 13. And so our number of protons and then subsequently our number of electrons. So these three are always going to be the same. Keep in mind, though, the number of neutrons could be different. And in fact, it is going to be different for this one. So before we do neutrons, let's do the mass number. the mass number is, well, here we can see this periodic table doesn't have atomic mass. The atomic mass for aluminum on this one is 26.981538. We just round that to the nearest integer. Right, so we take this number, we're going to round it to the nearest integer. Yep, 27. Yep, you guys got it. Yep, so we're just going to put down 27. Good. So now I want you to estimate or calculate what is the number of neutrons. Yep, seems like we got it. 14. So your number of neutrons plus your number of protons will add up to equal your mass number. Yep. And so I made a mistake on this one. I meant to do that in gray so that you would see that it was these two numbers. It's not the protons and electrons. It's the protons and neutrons.